Yes, indeed. Trying to get over the hump. Show number 129, Thursday evening. A little bit of our normal time skip, but glad that you are all here. Welcome to another edition, the Over the Hump Day edition of Soul Tree Radio in the Raw. I'm your host, Michael Lewis Ingram, DJ Honeycomb. As always, it is good to have you in the house. The special assignment kept us away from our normal time skip, but we are glad that you are here to indulge us for the next 2 hours, hopefully. Soul Tree Radio in the Raw, sponsored by the Black Athlete Sports Network, our friends here at Blog Talk, our colleagues, at 1450 WCLM AM, the soul of Richmond, Virginia, the crew of Sports Talk. Got me all choked up just thinking about it. Cowboy Reggie and Company, that was Sabi as a bitch. Woo! Anyway. Thanks to Cowboy Reggie and crew, our friends and colleagues at WUFO 1080 AM, Buffalo, New York, The Mix, where Pat Freeman and company are working diligently for the citizens of Western New York to help get the appropriations in, funding done so that, well, the funding is actually there, but to get all the political madness out the way so they can finally have their world-class stadium and complex that will have jobs for people, something we haven't heard about for a few months, jobs, that is, for everybody up in that neck of the woods, and we applaud their work. My colleague Anthony Johnson, who is on the air right now with his show, so one way or another, either listen to my replay or listen to him live or flip-flop or whatever, you know it's all good either way it's sliced. Brother Johnson on the air from 9 to 10, and if you happen to be tuning in or flip-flopping, switch over to where we're at after 10 and jump back on in. To our colleagues Lee and Aaron Hansen also at Guardian Caps, and you guys for being so patient as we have to flip-flop. Now, it's interesting. I just had an 80s moment a couple of days ago when we were talking about musical artists, and the word synchronicity ran across my mind. Now, the first time I ever saw or heard of the word wasn't when the Police came out with that great album back in the day in the 80s. Actually, synchronicity, the first time I heard it happened to be in a casino when we were talking about blackjack. You know, for some that don't know, you know, it's a card game where you have to get to 21 by any combination therein. And, well, a lot of times what's not known is that when you're dealing blackjack, as I have done for many fundraisers, you have to have a continuity between the players at the table, that each one will make the proper play, even if it doesn't turn out to be the most fruitful play for them individually, because if they do everything right, more times than not, they will prove out to be better because the dealer will fail and everybody will get paid. And because there has to be that common understanding and desire to work with, even though everybody's got their own money at stake, that's synchronicity. And that's the kind of thing that even sometimes I'll bring up when I'm teaching Blackjack 101. But having said all of that, this synchronicity goes further than that, because it also goes to the political venue and others, as so much crap has come out now that flying in the face of something that we've always said on our show about not having to believe a word we say, but always keep in mind that when we say something, and if it's sitting in your cranium and whatnot, even if you don't want to admit it might be right, you know, when something comes down the road that gives more fruit to it and whatnot, you got to just go ahead and give props where it's due. We have talked constantly on this show about how the mainstream media is devoid of trying to tell people the truth, or they'll just make up stuff as they go along, or the public themselves is distracted. I know right now you've got American Idol and you've got Scandal too. So, yeah, you know, indulge in those things if you want. But when shit happens to you, don't ask what the hell happened if you were too idle because you were watching American Idol and you were more concerned with voting which one of those singers are going to sound better than things that were going to benefit you wholeheartedly across the board in terms of your better way of life, functioning, rights, everything. In this spirit, we got to go into what the menu is going to be for tonight. We're going to talk about, when they are applicable, May 13th was the 25th anniversary of the tragedy in West Philadelphia, where the Move House was taken under siege and literally an entire neighborhood almost blown to bits and set on fire because of the rash actions of a few and supposedly positions of responsibility. Bobbi Booker, when available, will pop in along with our colleague Sonic Sherial because they were Philly residents at the time to take the lead on this issue. On the other side of this, we're going to also talk about the fact that now it is going to 38, 38 being the number of times that Congress is trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act. I mean, this is some crazy shit. We're talking about millions of dollars going in other directions because they don't give a shit about doing anything but continuing to hold up the process. Now, as I say this, I want to bring in my first compadre here as Brother Gary is handling his business on the bowling alley. Cowboy Reggie on the road, riding the range and acting strange. What's up, Cowboy?
Well, I just want to say that today is the 1-year anniversary of the Godfather Go-Go, Chuck Brown. Chuck Brown passed today, 1 year ago. So, Chuck, rest in peace, brother.
God bless, indeed. The Godfather Go-Go was always good to go. But, Reggie, as we start talking about certain things here, since the basketball playoffs are coming in, I'm going to start with this. We know that early on, LeBron James and the Miami Heat eventually surged past the Chicago Bulls, who turned out to be a really tough out, as expected, in spite of the fact that Derrick Rose wasn't there. But I want to point to a specific incident that happened. Excuse me, as Chicago was beaten by Miami in one of the games that turned to be a rout. I believe it was the third game or the fourth. I'm not sure, but at the end of the game, Joakim Noah, who is he's a great basketball player. He's one of those guys that you want to have on your squad. And Joakim obviously has always been vocal and emotional and stuff like that. His heart's on his sleeve when he plays. But as the Bulls were being let out of the arena, this one woman comes over and gives him the finger, like right up in front of his face, screaming over the rail like some crazy bitch. Now, we know from the sports landscape, had Joakim called her name or spit in her face or bitch slapped her, he would have been the son of Satan. And I don't give a shit whether it was Miami or any other stadium. But the point is, the fans are losing their damn minds. People are going out of their minds thinking that they can just do and say anything and get away unscathed.
Well, Mike, I had said a long time ago that the Jim Romes of the world that do this foolishness, and also just because you buy a ticket does not give you the right to abuse these players. And I blame this on talk radio. Talk radio, again, in my humble opinion, have done no different than the Bull Connors of the world when you have the Sean Insanities and the Randy Savage and, of course, the 800-pound drug addict Rush Limbaugh, just ask his ex-wives, you don't believe me. But the whole thing about it, when you have a culture of people demonizing people of color who make money, and then I got to put Stephen A. Smith in there, too.
That's right. So is Boney.
I mean, when the mouse goes off constantly over and over again to demonize the players, but yet they don't say nothing about, like, the Gilberts of the world who own the Cleveland Cavaliers, who acted like his property was gone when LeBron James, who, by the way, took less money to leave by his own tradition. And he also, as my man T-Mac said, took care not one but two contracts, and you act like your property's gone. It's not LeBron James' responsibility to put money in your coffers or to save the state of Ohio from economic woes. So I blame talk radio for this, and the conservatives, those out there, the tea-baggers of the world, who do their due diligence to demonize people of color, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up Jim Rome, because the intriguing part about all of this shit is a day after on CBS Radio, which is now, well, was formerly something else, but now it's this conglomerate, CBS Radio points out that in one of their little minutes where they're talking about what happened with the fans at the Miami Arena, that he's talking about how classless this woman was. Now, this motherfucker is responsible for this shit, just like you said, because it wasn't that long ago Jim Rome was on national television disrespecting a football player, Jim Everett, calling him Chris like it was an insult because Chris Everett happens to be one hell of an athlete. But the bottom line was he was trying to stir the pot. The athlete asked him nicely, please do not call me that. And he says, what you going to do if I call you that again? And he said, you'll find out. And he called him Chris. Now, you're on national television, and you're daring an athlete that you know can pound your ass into little meatballs into having you call them or react to you being called a name. Now, he knows if that was a black athlete, he probably would have had his ass whipped, so he wouldn't even ask the question, but I digress. I have to slip away from this for the moment because I'm bringing in one of my soul patrollers, my correspondent from the Pacific Northwest. She also happens to be my daughter. Leah Michelle into the mix. What's up, Leah?
Hi.
How are you feeling, sweetheart?
I'm doing all right.
Good. Myself and Cowboy Reggie in the mix. And as we were talking about how politics has changed here and how the mainstream media really isn't telling people anything, the effect of the 1% is not just something that's resigned to the American borderlines. This is something that's permeated into Canada as well, as we were talking earlier. And I just want you to give people just some 411 on what happened recently at the provincial elections up there.
Okay, well, I'd say about a month leading up to May 14th, Elections Day, the polls, or the projected polls, were NDP were in favor. And this was being splashed across the news consistently.
Okay, so, Leah, for American purposes, let everybody know, like, what NDP is equivalent to in American politics. Like, is it Democrat or Republican?
It's a Democratic.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Democratic Party. And then there's also the Liberals, as well as there's a Conservative Party, Independent Party, and a Green Party.
Okay.
Now, the NDP and the Liberals were basically, they were the ones that you were looking out for. And come Election Day, it was shocking as the votes were coming in and the results were coming in that the NDP were just getting slaughtered. And I just think that the news, they faked everybody out. They made everybody think that, yes, NDP's got this in the bag. So I think people just thought that they didn't need to go out and thought, oh, there was enough other voters that were going to vote for NDP.
Right.
And as well as not just that, it was people that were, I guess, they don't trust either party, and there's split voting going on. So voters that are voting for the Green Party or the Independent Party, because if you were to take all the Green Party votes and put them with NDP votes, they would have beat the Liberals, no problem.
Right. And so just like here in the States, the effect of that was like what happened to us in 2010 when the Tea Partiers got a lot of their candidates in. Is that what you're implying?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They just slipped right in there like a sneaky little sly fox. I'm actually really ashamed of BCers, and I hope that there are some Canadian people hearing this, because it is a shame not to exercise your freedom to vote when people in the Middle East, especially women, are being killed trying to exercise that same freedom. It's disgusting. I can't believe it. And it was only 48% turnout. That is shameful.
That is shameful. When you think about it, Leah, I got the impression that just like here in the States, unions are going to be attacked just like they were attacked here, because we have right to work here, and right to work really means that you really don't have a right to work because you come in one day, and if somebody's on the wrong side of the bed, they can say, Leah, it's been a slice, but you're no longer needed. Do you fear something like that's going to head to Canada?
It actually happened probably about 10 or 12 years ago when the Campbell party was in, the premier. As soon as he was in party, he's part of the Liberals too, he ripped up the contracts, and we lost 15% of our wages, just like that, after he had already promised not to do it. So just the fact that people had just voted the Liberals in, knowing that they go against their word, and they did a dirty campaign. They were just mudslinging. And why do we want to vote somebody in that's just pointing the finger when they should just be busy trying to tackle the issues at hand? And the NDP was trying to be cordial. They were, trying to be like holding out a hand, and I want to help you. I want to help your neighbor, help your neighbor. Instead, we voted in a party that likes to point fingers and build a bigger gap between people.
Hmm.
It's so disappointing.
Reggie it sounds like what Lee is talking about sounds very familiar to how the Democrats here didn't have any balls in trying to hold these teabaggers accountable for some of the stuff that they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mike, that's definitely your daughter, Mike. God bless her. She's a queen. I love her already. I heard the Journal of Truth and Harriet Tubman. God bless you, my queen. But I told Mike the same thing, that the sad thing about it, that, okay, President Obama passed the Liberty Act, and hopefully women can get more money. But up there in Canada, we see the craziness with health care, and also not only that, just the borders, how they try to do the foolishness. But I have one quick question, if I could, my dear. My question to you, overall, do you think that there is, my humble opinion, what's your opinion on this, a climate, especially with what's going on with the military and the women feeling that they've been disrespected and the sexual harassment, do you feel that there's just a climate on a world view where women are looked down upon and they're not respected?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like it's always an ongoing battle. It's just something that, yeah, I totally agree with that. It's just something that I would really love to see more women in politics. Not like Christy Clark, though, but just women that are actually trying to unite the people instead of breaking them apart. Because once you start to break people apart and put them in these silos, they forget that the whole point of voting is to vote for the people, not for yourself. So it's just, yeah, absolutely.
Leah, do you think that people were more taken aback by the aggressive tone of the liberals and the way they were campaigning, that the NDP think that they thought that nobody would really listen to this, and of course folks were going to ignore them? Is that what really got them instead of just fighting back?
Yeah, I think that they assumed that after 4 consecutive terms of liberals just mudslinging, that people were tired of it. They were tired of the mudslinging, the finger pointing, that we wanted more of a cohesive party to bring the people together. And unfortunately, I guess the mudslinging worked for some people.
But Leah, up in Canada, you guys have one tool that was recently borrowed in the States, and that's the recall election, where if somebody's not doing their job, or if they're so bad at being bad at what they're doing and trying to cover it up, that they'll call them out on the carpet and say, we're going to review this whole thing and start over. So there's a recall in effect. We saw it happen in California with Ray Davis and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we saw them try to get the governor in Wisconsin out. Do you think a recall on the heels of this will be forthcoming, or is this just going to be the forebear of something really bad coming down the pike? Because, again, like I said, the unions are going to be attacked, and I got the vibe from some people who also sold patrols out of Canada that they're going to also make immigrants scapegoats here, because they're talking about more and more British Columbians or Canadians across the board not having jobs, and immigrants coming in and taking the jobs.
Oh, yeah. Well, sorry. Can you reiterate that question again?
Sure, sweetie. Is it more of a fear that there won't be a recall imminent? Like somebody will say, well, we got to stop this and jump on them and have a recall election inside of a year. Or are you fearful that this is going to be something that's going to increase in tempo even more, this animus toward Canadians, and that they're going to try to blame so-called immigrants because British Columbians and other Canadians across the board aren't getting the jobs like they used to? There's more unemployment overall.
Right. Well, time is definitely going to tell, because Christy Clark did not even win her seat in her riding. So somebody in her party is going to have to give up their seat. And before the actual election, there was a lot of dispute inside their party itself, where her own people were trying to oust her. They wanted Christy Clark out. Yes. So I don't know how this is going to pan out if she couldn't even get a seat in her own riding, and she's going to be our premier for BC. I don't see how, it's just, I don't get it.
It sounds like the position got, for lack of a better word, emasculated. Ridings up in Canada are kind of like districts here in the States. But having said that, if she's already been compromised, who among the NDP leadership is going to be able to speak up and be that kind of force that you know, will be attractive, but yet have a purpose behind them, and people can say, we need to get behind this person to lead us out of this if they're already having conflict within the party with this Christy Clark person?
Well, that I know of right now, the NDP is still sticking to Adrian Dix as their leader. Yeah, that hasn't changed. But all those in the Liberal Party that were trying to oust Christy Clark, they're probably running for cover right now.
That sounds familiar, doesn't Mike, in the States?
It does sound familiar. Unfortunately, that's the sad part about it. It seems like no matter which side of the border you're on, no matter what side of the border you're on, it seems like things that matter to the people at large are being ignored. And because of that, special interests are working behind the scenes to make sure a handful of people will have access to things, and more of the masses, unless they speak the hell up. And we know, for better or worse, Canadians always seem to have an image of, well, you know, we're the peace sticks, blah, 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 and we don't do that. You know, they're taking advantage of this situation to pretty much bum rush this whole situation.
Hey, Mike, I want to ask your daughter a quick question.
Sure.
What do the people in Canada really feel about the States? I mean, not only just our politics, but just the racism that goes on in the United States, the way President Obama being depicted. I mean, what is the overall view of Canadians of the United States?
Of the States? A power country? I think that's what most people think, that United States basically, they're the neck of the world. They tell the head which way to go. I think that's what a lot of Canadians think. Yeah, I could be wrong, but most people I talk to, that's how they feel about it.
Leah, does it feel more like resentment when they talk about Americans, or do they understand bigger picture issues?
I think sometimes there is some resentment, especially when you start to talk about war.
Yeah.
There is a lot of resentment there, just because just, you know what I mean, like everything that's gone on. And Canadians are very, I don't know, they're kind of genteel. They kind of want to come in and mediate. You know what I mean? Like, let's see your side. Let's see your side. You know, they're mediators, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's where I was getting at, because I think in the spirit of that, the Liberals took their marching orders as to how to approach them, and in that they managed to take advantage. Like you said, they got in there, took advantage of a situation, and now that they're in, they're like roaches. Once you get rid of their ass, you know, once they're in there, you can't get them out. You know, you got to find ways to extricate them.
Put them lights on them.
Well, we know raid don't work, because all that's going to do is get them high. But having said that, into the mix is Professor Fred. Is that all you got?
Is Richard Pryor is that all you got?
Professor, we have my daughter Leah on the line from British Columbia, talking politics, and she's talking about how the political shift went, and the attitude between their equivalent of the Democratic Party has wimped out, just like ours did here. We've seen so many scandals here across the states, Fred. It's not a stretch to think that scandals wouldn't happen in Canada either. But are you of the mindset that the 1% that was highlighted in our elections is a global 1% and not just a American or a North American 1%? Well, first of all, good evening, by the way.
Good evening. I'm somewhat familiar with Canadian politics. I will say this. The Canadians, well, she described the Canadians as more genteel, and I think that sort of has come about more as what I would call the British rule has gone away, because the British would suck them into stuff over the years, whether they want to go or not. And so I think, fortunately, at least some of that has changed. But I think it's no matter where you go, the mindset is crossing borders like crazy. We don't, we and the main thing is information. Once upon a time in our lifetime, you could have stuff going on, and you could limit who knew it.
Yes.
Well, can't do that anymore. It happens here. It's shown me uplinked to wherever, and you're in the industry, so remember how they used to do football games and basketball games? It was a great big old tractor trailer.
That's right.
Thing with a dish. Now you come in with a pickup truck, something that looked like a dish for Dish Network or something like that.
Yep.
Pop it up.
Good to go.
And you're good to go. And that's the way. Remember doing the back in 91, 92 in Saudi when they were going into Iraq.
Right.
They came up with this thing they called satellite radio. And remember how guys were able to do that? Well, because of that kind of resource, it's impossible. Everybody's getting the same information now. So everybody now has an opinion. You may like or dislike it. They may care more because of the distance, but, what is the real distance now? You got this gentleman over in North Korea talking about he's going to blow up something in the United States.
Yep.
What? Now, whether he has the capacity to do that or not is neither here nor there. He can say it, and we know it in less than 5 minutes. So,
exactly.
Missiles travel a lot faster than airliners and that sort of thing. But, I think we have to look at it in a much broader, through a much broader lens now, because everybody's getting the same information. Because they get at least parts of the same information, now they're going to form their opinions based on some of the same things, no matter where they are.
Having said that, Leah, when you turn on Canadian TV and you listen to and you watch the CBC or the American TV networks, whether it's CBS, NBC, or what have you, and you look at the news people, is news that comes over the airwaves in Canada consistent with what comes over the American airwaves if it's the same story?
It's hard to say. I don't know if I could comment correctly on that because I watch one news channel only, and I rarely see American news. And if it is, it's coming from the same news channel, and it's a national overview. So I really don't have anything to compare that to comment on that one.
The reason I brought it up is because mainstream news, we have found with the recent incidents involving Benghazi, involving the IRS going after supposed liberal sites and stuff, or auditing and things, and our Attorney General losing his mind and going after somebody else here, is a clear indication that the mainstream media is not telling the public the straight dope here. Or they're at the very worst, they're being told what they're what they're told to say, and when something else comes out otherwise, well, all of a sudden there's a scandal, or we got to do something about this, otherwise, heads will roll and that kind of nonsense. So I was just curious about that. But
I basically take news with a grain of salt. It's almost like reading a tabloid. You can't really believe everything you hear from the news. I mean, it's somewhat propaganda in a sense, get everybody in a tizzy, just like the election. NBC's going to win, and it was complete falsified information.
So what does this hold now for working folks and people who are part of what I would call the essentials, for fire, police, for nurses, hospital workers, other first responders? How do you think this new government is going to treat them and their very strong unions?
I think we will be last on their agenda, to tell you the truth. I think what they're going to be looking at most of all, I know they talk about boosting our economy, so I'm thinking business. That's their political agenda. Their main thing is let's work on the businesses. And the teachers and all the healthcare workers, we're just going to be left on the back burner.
It sounds really consistent with the states, Fred. Don't you think so?
I think I've heard that song before.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing is that here, they're more interested in garbage and other nonsense than they are in actually producing business. And in spite of them, business is beginning to generate itself just because the people who are running the businesses are tending to ignore the nonsense and get down to brass tacks to build the relationships they need, get the work done on the ground. They're I was in a situation today where I got to see the other side of it, and you see some of the results of the nonsense. And I'm talking to a young lady who is about to be furloughed. Not because of being inefficient. Matter of fact, their office is very efficient. But I'm being told that because of these new budget cuts and this other stuff through this
sequester.
They're getting ready to lay people off, but then there are things they got to get done. And you need X number of people to get them done. But because of this whole conservative nonsense, all of a sudden they're going to have to, and it's really going to generate some really dangerous situations. We have seen what's going on with the TSAs and all those other folks out there. And remember about 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was the air traffic controllers?
That's right.
Now, you do kind of need those guys.
You think?
I mean, if I were to step outside in a few minutes, you would hear helicopters flying over. The air traffic control system here worked between Fort Bragg and the local airport. Now they got to coordinate. You know what I mean? This is one of those nights where there are probably some guys going out to jump. So these guys will fly through this airspace 3 or 4 times before they line up and go jump. Well, you got to coordinate all those things, and there has to be somebody on the other end to coordinate. Exactly. And these morons are out there playing with people's lives. Granted, these guys will probably, they will find a way to get the job done. But how long can you do that consistently, considering how eventually somebody's going to get tired? We had that happen from some of the same kind of nonsense over the last few years. Guys going to sleep in the box. But you got people out here now who are, I think, on the ground floor. They're going to get the job done. But you still have those people at the top who are going to get paid the rest of their lives, no matter what.
True.
Who are forgetting the fact that they're supposedly. I mean, they forget why they were sent there, and they're not getting the job done at the top.
Leah, I got to ask this. Well, you definitely don't want to say oops when you see planes at 40,000 feet all of a sudden crashing into each other. That's bullshit. But because you're in Canada, and Canada has always been given more of an atmosphere of freedom and independence, is there a strong enough independent voice that would make a difference to the more established parties that would make people choose that as that other option as opposed to, vanilla or chocolate here?
Well, there is some headway on that. Like a Green Party MLA was voted in on the island, Vancouver Island, and that's a step forward. And an Independent Party MLA was also voted into the House of Commons. So people are thinking, environment now too. They're like, you know what? I really care about the environment, and voting for a Green Party MLA is just the beginning of that. So I think we are going to see a change. It's just not happening quite fast enough.
All right, Cowboy, any last questions for Leah before she goes?
Yeah, Leah, first of all, I want to thank you so much. And your dad, man, he's a warrior. He's the Nat Turner of Blog Talk Radio,
Oh, yeah.
so we love him so much. But my question to you, we know you kind of always keep getting hammered over and again by the conservative when it comes to health care. Can you let the audience know truly what is health care up there in Canada? Give us a real skinny about how things really are when it comes to the health care system.
Okay. Our healthcare system is phenomenal. I really believe it. It is affordable. The pharmaceuticals are affordable. And for somebody like me who's a student right now, if I can't afford to pay my monthly, it's called the medical service plan, you can actually send in, an application to have that waived, no problem, and you can take your kids, you can take yourself and go to the dentist and the doctor and not have to worry about paying.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, I have 2 children, so I never have to worry about, lining up at a clinic because I can't go to the hospital or wherever, the doctors, because I have to pay up front or something like that, right? I never have to worry about that. So that's, as a Canadian, we really don't worry too much about health care. The only view I have of worrying about health care is the healthcare workers, because they are going to be the ones getting the crappy end of the stick, because their contracts will be ripped up or, their hours will be cut down. And so it's actually the healthcare workers that get affected, not the people accessing the system.
Mm-hmm. Excellent point, Cowboy, especially when you consider, again, that we're going to talk about later, the Congress refusing once more to work on jobs but spending more money and more bullshit, our money, on trying to, again, repeal the Affordable Care Act, which will now make 38 times, with a tab already of $71 million plus of our money that's spent, when these guys sitting there sticking their thumbs up their ass and not carrying on with the people's work and trying to get more jobs and a better infrastructure and fixing bridges and roads and all this other stuff. Professor, you have any last questions for Leah?
Well, piggybacking on Rachel's question when it comes to health care, because the description we get, the typical description we get, are the lines. What are the major limitations, or are there any major limitations as to what you can go in for, or how is it? Because what is the term they use? They term that we'll be rationing health care, and from what you're telling us, that's not the case at all.
I think that when they talk about that, it's more like when you're trying to see a specialist. That's where it becomes a slippery slope. Like the optometrist or the ophthalmologist. Like when you start trying to, get in to see a specialist, that's where there are issues, because I don't believe our health care covers that. That has to come out of pocket. But everything else, like if you were to go into the emergency room or just go to your general practitioner, you don't have to worry about a cost. That's for sure. And a lot of the times the general practitioners here will try to accommodate your prescriptions if you can't even afford them. Exactly. Yeah.
Leah, before you go, sweetheart, I got to get some perspective on what's life like after the Canucks have been eliminated. Is there going to be any heads rolling up there in Vancouver?
I didn't
mean to do it, baby. I didn't mean to do it, but I had to go there.
You are cruel to your daughter, Mike. That's cruel.
He is a little cruel, huh? You know what was funny, though? After they had been eliminated, I saw so many jerseys around the city, though.
Really?
Still.
Okay.
I know people are disappointed, but what the thing of it is the love for hockey itself just drives people to continue to love the Canucks, because it not only is just great to bring people together, it's a family event most of the time.
That's true. That's true. We watched the final as a family when the United States almost upset Canada. I never heard a neighborhood get so quiet
Here you
in
go,
one
Mike.
shot.
You put some fire in there. Here you go, Mike.
That was buck wild.
Yeah.
Leah, do you get the sense that they're going to blow the team up, or are they going to stick with their core?
I wouldn't say blow up in Canada.
I think there's going to be some changes a coming. Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely think so. Whatever's going on right now is just not working. I think it would be in their best interest to kind of make some changes, mix it up a little bit.
All right. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll get an update from you.
Toronto Raptors. Hey, Mike, tell them blow up the Toronto Raptors, the basketball team. You need to blow them up.
Well, no, Toronto will stay long after the NFL gets a team there, because that's exactly what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to hold the fort and make Toronto considered to be a world-class city until the NFL finally gives them their franchise, and they can make that international money, or as Richard Pryor would say, that Yang money. But I digress. Having said that, Leah, as always, sweetheart, my love to the girls. You take care. Thank you for taking some time to talk with us and give us the view from the over the 48th parallel. Love you.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right, sweetie. Bye-bye.
Yeah, great job, Mike. Great job.
I am truly blessed. She's not only
you lucky, brother.
She's smart.
How lucky you are.
She's got a good head on her shoulders, and she knows her stuff. So, doesn't fall too far from the tree, as they say. But having said that, let's go where. Let's watch your mouth now. Let's continue where Leah left off before we go back into the fan thing, because again, 38 times now. I don't give a shit which party it is. Republicans and Democrats got to be saying, wait a minute, why don't y'all leave this shit the fuck alone? We got other things to do here. 38 times at a cost of over $71 million. That's Republican dollars. That's Democrat dollars. That's independent dollars. That's any kind of party you want dollars. But all of that shit has been spent on these guys sitting there jerking us around and keep coming to the podium knowing they're going to get rebuffed. I would have thought 3 times probably would have been enough where your argument was gone, let's move on. And even that would have been 3 times too much for me. But 38 times. Now, come on. Something the fuck is wrong with this picture, y'all.
In all due respect, Mike, and all due respect, excuse me for interrupting you, all due respect, it's about strategizing. I'm not mad at the Republicans, man, because the bottom line, these guys are about 2014. And the punk-ass Democrats, especially in Virginia, they are always on the defense. And, again, I can't get mad at these guys because they say what they're going to do. Just like, isn't it interesting how all these scandals hit all within 1 week? Okay, Manzai got hearings on that. The Irish got hearings on that. They got hearings on the media with the leaks and everything. This was orchestrated. I don't care nobody says. And, again, I give the Republicans whoever credit, and I would say this, just like the I Am a Man march with the late Dr. King, and you had the invaders going down there and sabotaging that situation with the march, the same thing is going on with the Democratic Party. I hate to say it, but President Obama had Judas. He has invaders in his party that are going out there, the causes of the world, that are sitting up there, in my humble opinion, just invading his party and then sabotaging this guy. Every time he looks around, it's something coming up.
Sure it is. Fred, Representative John Lewis, whose district of Georgia would be one of those adversely affected if the Affordable Care Act is reversed, expressed his frustration. But, and as much respect I have for that brother, because he was there and he took the lumps. But, the Democrats ain't done shit on this. And this gives teeth to what you were saying all along about who's actually getting shit done. I mean, not only are these boys wimps, I got to wonder if they all are playing for the same side, because as we spoke months ago, jobs were supposed to be the big issue when this thing came out the door. It's almost freaking June. Half the year is almost gone, and how many jobs have we seen? How many efforts have we seen to put jobs out there? How much actual breaking the dirt, getting the thing done, hiring people have we actually seen in the midst of all of this?
Well, I'll give you two points on that. One, I live just down the road a little bit from where they're building a project. A bypass for it's called here's 295.
Okay,
which goes around the edge of Fort Bragg. So in the morning about 5:30, 6 o'clock, as soon as the sun comes up a little bit, I hear this pounding because they're driving these beams into the ground. So something is being done. Now, mind you, this project was passed and begun in 2000. It was passed in 2007, and it's now you know how they do the funding of certain pieces of it along the way.
Yeah.
And rather than, I don't know if you've went to Atlanta for like 10 years. There was always this piece of a bridge that hung out over the road.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
Okay. Rather than have that, they kept funding like 200 and something million, another 30 million here, 65 here, for some bridges and stuff. So they've kept the project going. But then that's old news. Having said that, now the new stuff that needs to go along with this, to include certain little things like crossing guards on post. They don't use sheriff's deputies and those kind of people like they do out here in the mainstream. Well, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was announced that no longer will soldiers be allowed to serve as crossing guards on post because they're being moved to other duties, i.e., working in kitchens, all those things, because that civilians used to do. I was in the library a few days ago. See a young man, thought you were working. I was. They just laid us off. So now, rather than drawing a full paycheck, he's drawing unemployment, which our illustrious governor just passed got this thing passed in the state house that says it limits payments for unemployment to like $300 and some bucks, and then you go up to $546 or something like that. So again, it's hitting on two tiers. One is the federal level, the other is the state level, where you have people of the same ilk out there trying to show their conservative bravado. Now, to back up what Reggie is saying, I'll repeat something that I was part of some years ago. We had a Rufus Edmonston and Mayor Knox was running against each other for governor of North Carolina.
Okay.
Well, the strategist said, the easiest thing for Governor Martin to get elected was to get Rufus Edmonston on the ticket. So, several of us who look like us, who were automatically assumed to be good Democrats. Why? Because you people are always Democrats.
Yeah.
We got out there and we worked our behinds off for Rufus Edmondson. Got him elected. And we got him nominated. Then, once the nomination and everything, everybody goes to, I think that was someone went to Dallas, wherever the Republican convention was, and someone comes back and says they saw me there, they saw some other people there, and was that true? Sure it was. You worked in my campaign. Yes, we did. And then it comes from, oh, hell, something's wrong with this picture. But see, this is what white Democrats do all the time.
Exactly.
Now, black Democrats wouldn't be caught dead at a Jesse Helm rally, but their white compatriots are all up in there.
Sure.
That'll believe.
And they, we had a gentleman here who is a former senator, and he was running, and he gave Senator Helms $1,000, and during the primary, he gave Senator Helms $1,000, and whoever else was running, they got $1,000 apiece. Well, the short of it was, all the black Democrats were raising hell with him for being a traitor. But you're in the business world, so what you got. And Senator Helms, was first class when it came to constituent relations, ain't nobody played the game better than Senator Helms.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
And among the things that he was able to do was, he wanted to be able to get and he told him, if I come down with a business situation and I need a senator. I don't care who the senator is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, black folks didn't understand that. And because they didn't understand, he ended up losing not too long after that.
Mm-hmm.
But to show you how really lax Democrats are, we have a young man whose name I cannot remember from the great big town of Rayford, which is a bedroom community to Fayetteville, just across the county line.
Mm-hmm.
He ran against a county commissioner who has been in office at least three terms,
mm-hmm.
and beat the hell out of him. And he's walking around, so those weren't real numbers. I said, well, that's like fake bullets. They still you. And I had to give it to him that way because his wife, he married a young lady who went to my alma mater. Okay. And so I said, you're talking about fake. So you're saying those weren't real numbers, but you lost.
Mm-hmm.
And it's making light of something that really is very serious. Okay, exactly. You are the sitting county commissioner for at least 3 terms. You are the one who's well known. You get beat like a redhead stepchild
mm-hmm.
in a race that you should have run away with, and you got beat by. Most of his votes came from across the county line, but which tells you that's like when what is his name? One of our local state senators here ran in the running. Oh no, this was before Edwards. Leave our man alone. But he ran against another gentleman from the western part of the state. And I said, well, he lost his home. He lost his hometown. He won by 10,000 votes. Yes, he won by 10,000 votes in the region, but in his home county, he won by less than 1,000, or just over 1,000, rather. And this cat had been in for years.
But see, I think all of that speaks to the issue that we started on. This has now I'm putting on my conspiracy hat, my Oliver Sly and the Family Stone official conspiracy hat, because if we all remember the beginning of the movie JFK, now I don't care whether y'all liked it or didn't like it, the most important part of the movie was the very beginning when President Eisenhower is speaking in his farewell address, and he's saying straight up, look, the game is being changed on us, y'all, and even though he's not going ghetto here, he's saying straight up, I'm leaving because the military that I served in, the military that was part of what my country is supposed to be about, the military where I led men to fight and maybe die on some occasions, they're not going to worry about that sort of thing anymore. They're in the business of selling arms to whomever has the money to buy them. They don't really give a fuck. All they want to know is you have the money, we'll sell you the arms. And I don't want to be a part of that. Essentially, in the beginning where he's talking about that speech, where he's saying he doesn't want this, we shouldn't be looking for any kind of information, intel, or whatever, sought or unsought by the military-industrial complex. He's telling everybody, I was part of this. I know how these cats run. They are real gangsters here, and they don't care if they sell arms to both sides of a conflict. All they worry about is selling more arms. They don't care if somebody's winning for the right reason or the wrong reason. He said all this beforehand. And at the end of the movie, Costner's character is talking about how President Bush goes on and on talking about how, he'll speak of peace, but in the meantime, the people behind and back are the ones with real power behind the throne. They're selling the arms again. And it's beyond arms now. It's more than hardware. It's chemicals and it's other kinds of crap that's designed to wipe out billions of people. And those arms don't really give a shit what chance they find in. They just want them bought. So now we're at this same spot where the Congress, Republicans and Democrats, these sons of bitches together, will now bleat about how we need more jobs, but yet certain segments of either party are going to sit there and delay for months any kind of forward process about getting jobs done, about taking care of our vets, about taking care of women in the military who are being raped, all of these different things. They have passed the back burner. They're not on the mainstream news, and it's deliberate. And this pattern is going to remain that way until somebody says enough. And we need for either the president or the attorney general, I don't care which one, to have a Dolomite moment and bitch slap somebody into some legislation.
Well, Mike, today, I spent the early part of today actually doing some things to help some veterans. And the nice way to say what I saw was, it was not only disappointing, it was actually depressing. Mm-hmm. One of the brighter spots was the fact that it was one of the young ladies who was famous. I got to meet her yesterday. Mm-hmm. And, I watched this young lady. She's now an officer, but she started out enlisted. Mm-hmm. And got her degree and so forth through ROTC and whatnot, and then got promoted to first lieutenant and this kind of thing. Sure. And, that was the upside, watching her work, watching some of the other soldiers who were there. Only a couple actually came in uniform because they took the day off, so they were, there was no necessity of having their uniforms on. Mm-hmm. And some people wouldn't even know they were actually soldiers. But I watched stuff. I saw some things today. Because of all the stations for me to get, this would have been a perfect station for Reggie, but anyway, this was a station where they were examining people's feet. Mm-hmm. And I saw some things, it was like I said, it was really, some of them was really awful, because these guys, these young ladies, and there were several young ladies, which was really depressing. These people cannot afford new socks. Mm-hmm. Because, in the streets, you don't wash stuff, you throw it away and get new ones. Right. Well, that's provided you get new ones. Mm-hmm. And one of the things several people, like the doctor who was working on the people's feet, she was an older lady, but, God bless her soul, because she just worked like it was nothing. Mm-hmm. And she, and we saw some things, it's like, you got to be kidding me. Damn. But my point is, as this is going on, you have these young people who, well, most of the young people, some older ones who are older Vietnam-era veterans who are homeless. One young man who insisted on volunteering because he felt it was not right for him to take without giving back. Mm-hmm. So they got him, he went through for his services, and then they got him a T-shirt, and they let him help with some of the stuff that we were getting done, to include, knock down some tables and that sort of thing. Right. But, this is service. That was service. Yeah. What these morons in D.C. or wherever they are vacationing today, that's a travesty. Yes. And see, I buy into some of the conspiracy theories too, because I've read about conspiracies, several of them, and these things sound like movies, but they're reality. Mm-hmm. It's like I upset some people who got a little bent out of shape with me because I was talking about how Jews profit from both sides of World War II.
And they did.
They did.
Exactly.
And still living off some of the money they made off of Hitler. Because when you look at the companies that made various things, who was it that made the chemicals? Who was it that made? Who owned the railroads? Mm-hmm. Who owned the Stoder Works? Yep. Which made so many, everything from ball bearings to the airplanes, all kinds of stuff. Yep. The Jews who owned those things in most cases stayed there and ran those things, because think about it. Hitler had nobody in his entourage smart enough to run some of those places. Exactly. So I buy into the conspiracy theory right along with you because, as Dr. Franklin used to say, it may not be what we think it is, but we know it was something.
Exactly.
And when we was talking about Willie Lynch, they say, well, that's not so. We can't find any irrefutable evidence. No, you can't find any evidence that we find. You're going to refute. That's
right.
Why it's not irrefutable.
There you go.
But this is. And see, we got all kinds of talent, and we got all kinds of ways of getting things done. But then there has to be a will to get these things done, and the will is just not there. That's
exactly right. As we're going to actually, Cowboy, let me get some last licks on you on this subject. You heard what Fred had to say and whatnot. You got anything else to throw into the pot regarding that?
Well, see, the thing that really troubles me, that the black leadership, I'm going to speak for what's going on in Virginia, have basically followed the money. Just like Dr. Carl Anderson broke Black Labor White Wealth, when he talks about marriage plus man mission, which, by the way, started here in the state of Virginia back in 1800. And the thing that really troubles me again, that so many times we will have black politicians, and I'll put the right word is Democrats, that will stand there, pat you on the back, tell them how good we're going to make things, and then you see your area deteriorate. Matter of fact, we have a study right here going right now. It's been over 16 years where Brother Kingston, California, executive NAACP, is a study where now people are getting plea bargains, end up in felony, and become drug conviction. You might get caught with a joint. You might get caught even with possession. But they say, rather you go to prison and everything, we just going to plead this. Okay, I'm going to plead. You think you're a misdemeanor, you look at your record, and you got hit with a felony. Guess
That's
what?
Right.
No jobs. Guess what?
Can't vote.
No vote. I mean, guess what? You got opportunities where even alone. I mean, all this is timing because what? You are a convicted felon. And see, this is a trick they play. And again, these sorry-ass Democrats, the black leadership, keep their mouth shut. And before we close on this note, we had the Honorable Benny Lambert, who was the senior. Now, I want you guys to hear this. He was the senior most person on the commission, and this guy was on the finance committee. Now, Dr. Fred Witt, check this out. This brother Benny, Senator Lambert, was trying to get money for HBCU. Black Democrats got angry with him and said, because you're trying to work with George Bush to get money for black HBCUs, we're going to go after you. That was his only intent, is get money for black HBCUs. On the flip side, Terry McCullough and Tim McCain comes in here, run ads like, well, we walk across the aisle. We work with Republicans. Not a damn thing is said. You want to know why I'm a little hot about this situation?
Got a right to be. That's exactly what we're talking about. Go ahead, Fred. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, but that's typical.
Yep.
And so many of our politicians, we have a young lady on the city council here.
Whoop. Fred popped out for a second. I see where he bopped out. Must have been a bad signal. We'll get him back in, Reggie. But
I'm right here.
No, I know you're here. Fred popped out for a second. His line dropped.
Okay.
So we got some gremlins going on, but the what
I
Fred,
must have said something to piss him off.
See, you always start in trouble. But to your point,
I'm a Cowboy fan. I need to get some relief.
Oh Lord, I know that.
That's being a Knicks fan.
You just had me reaching for the vodka now. Now, all right, now while Fred is offline until he gets back, what is the latest score with the Knicks? Did they win or are they losing?
They were up by 5.5. I ain't heard nothing about it.
All right. Well, we see they're still hanging on. 5. Gary is not able to report as he is on assignment. Bobbi just checked in, and she said that she's in transit. She won't be able to give us our move report tonight, so we will have that on menu for a later date. But to your point, that we see these type of things where things that would benefit black folks across the board, like more money for the Virginia states and the Virginia unions of the world. And
the St. Paul's is close to that.
You know something's wrong with that when they want to make sure that an institution for higher learning that's had years, generations of pedigree can't perpetuate, but they'll build a new fucking jail in a heartbeat and say, we need to push through appropriations for funding this.
Or the Washington football team. just built a new practice facility down here in Richmond, Virginia. Oh, by the way, that's over $900,000 over budget, and they just approved money for that, but they couldn't close the education gap for the schools in the city.
And this is a practice field we're talking about. We're not even talking about a real whatever, a practice.
Practice.
Exactly. There's something fucked up about that for real. But
yes,
again, until Fred gets back, let's go back to the dialogue that he brought up, that we started on, and that was this whole issue of fans interfering. Now we saw, that somebody like a Jim Rome would come out and say this kind of shit when he actually made his bones doing this kind of shit is offensive enough. So, when is this nonsense going to stop? I when you listen to the talk radio in my area and they talk about how good or how bad the Phillies are, they give you this shit with the tagline, drama, guaranteed. Well, what the fuck ever happened to just calling the fucking game? It's like, why do you need drama? Why can't you just follow the damn team and tell us who's won, who's lost, what the deal is, and all the necessary things, because drama's guaranteed now. Supposedly, these assholes have given themselves some position of self-importance, which only gets buttressed by more assholes who listen to them and figure, well, if I don't listen to them, I don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. The sad thing about it, Mike, I had a friend of mine years ago that used to work at Channel 6. He's out of business. That guy's from Philly. And they got these people in the ear that tell them we need to get ratings. It's not about trying to get the thing right. It's about painting the picture. It's complete. And the sad thing about it, we live in a Jerry Springer mentality, and it's really gotten over into the talk radio. Especially, when you have a situation, like you say, let's go back again to the Mouse and the Palace. Mike, can you educate the masses about that situation?
Look, when the Mouse and the Palace jumped off, for all of the noise that they wanted to make that night on ESPN and for all the supposed righteous indignation that Commissioner Stern had, this shit started when a fan threw a beer on Ron Artest. Let's remember that. I don't want to hear this crap about athletes not being in control. Ron Artest, who had back issues, was laying on the table, stretching out his back as he was waiting to come in. As he's waiting to come in, a fan douses him with a beer.
Mm-hmm.
He goes and reacts and goes after the fan. Now, I'm not saying he's right for reacting any more than I'm saying that anybody should go into the stands. But when you do something as egregious as throwing a beer on somebody thinking you're not going to get away with it, and shit happens because of it, how are you going to totally punish Artest for it? Artest was laying there ready to do his job. Now, you can call somebody names and all of that, but you're throwing shit at them. Now, what if that had been a beer bottle instead of a cup of beer? Yeah. What if Artest had been cut in the eye and injured as a result of that bottle?
Like Tony Parker. Yeah, like
Tony Parker was, exactly. But we're not even discussing that because, he lost control. And what really cracks me up is we have Fred back on the line as this thing had started to go further, and Steven Jackson had gone in there along with Artest to clean house in the stands and find the fucker who did it. As Artest was coming back down to the stage or to the floor, one drunk white fan figured he was going to get his Negro on and confront Artest. Liquid courage. And Artest knocked him the fuck out. You got to say it just like it is.
Him slide across the floor. I'm going to get you that bad boy.
And for all the money, for all the hit that Artest took, and for all the self-imposed exile that had to be thrown in there by the commissioner and one that everybody forgets, Ron Artest didn't come to the stadium or the arena with any intention of going in the stands and trying to whip somebody's ass any more than he expected to lie down, wait for his turn to come into the flow of the game and get hit with a beer. And the only saving grace in getting hit was that it was the liquid itself and not the beer bottle or some other projectile. We've heard baseball players talk about for years. having pennies thrown at them. Well, for somebody, you're thinking that ain't that big a deal. If you get hit with a penny from the 400 section of any stadium, which is up in the cheap seats, and that penny's coming down, do the physics on that, at the rate of speed that it is 32 feet per second squared. I remember that from school. And you get hit in the eye with that fucking thing. That's not just a penny. That's a projectile hitting you and causing damage.
Thank you. I got a bet with that, Mike. Back in the day, they used to take paper clips and get the rubber bands and shoot them at your leg.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about stinging.
So now we have stuff being thrown at you, names being called, and I remember Allen Iverson, he said Indiana was the worst place to play because of the names that they would call him. Not that anybody would threaten physical harm against him, but the names that they would call him. And now this is
Klan, Indiana.
And I'm gonna say now this is across the board. We've had fans come on the field, on the football field. Where's Mike Curtis when you need him? Because anybody who come on the football field, they need to have their ass whipped. That's straight up.
Oh, the police dog got them.
Bite him in the white meat. That's right. Get him. But from the football field to the baseball field, we've seen an umpire beaten by two drunken fans.
Yes, sir.
This is Major League Baseball. This is not anything from some Bull Durham fantasy. Fucking fans went on the field and assaulted an umpire. And did the fans do any hard time for that? To my recollect, no.
But they got their ass kicked, though, by the team.
But see, if you don't let people know that, if people don't know from the jump that if you come on the field, it's going to be a $10,000 fine and a year in jail, mandatory, then that shit would stop. You wouldn't have somebody coming out there having some drunk moment thinking, hey, look at me, no.
Yeah.
And we know doggone well that no black kids better not be doing that shit. If a black kid even thought about coming out there on that field, they probably would find the damn dogs and sick his ass on him.
Nah, they would shoot him.
Or
and I don't mean with a change the gun either.
But my point is,
just check them out.
Well, but my point is, going back to where we started with this lady giving Yannick Noah the finger, that she felt empowered to do it is at the crux of this. Let's not forget the Arena Bowl game where a score and a team's futures would change because as the guys get ready to catch the ball for the Georgia Force, I believe is the team, the Jacksonville fans literally grabbed this guy because y'all know arena football is really intimate. He yoked the guy. I mean, he grabbed his ass so he couldn't go forward. And there should have been a ruling immediately forfeiting the game and giving Georgia the victory. As a lesson that the fans cannot in any way get in the way of the outcome of the game. But we've seen this, and there's nobody or nothing that seems to be in sight to stop this level of violence and just straight out disrespect. And I think where Reggie started in the beginning, Fred, sports radio, so supposed sports talk radio, is right at the foot of this. They started this crap by putting all these other elements in it that had nothing to do with the box score or how a team won or lost because they wanted the whole thing to be about them.
Well, Mike, remember X number of years ago, there was this term that came up, smash mouth football?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Now, that was a John Madden, I think,
right,
addition to the game.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it ranks up there with Dipsy Doo Dunkaroo.
Oh God, yeah.
Which comes from that other buffoon.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I can say is at least Madden knew the game. There were some things he added to the game I think that's a waste, and it has given people license that they don't deserve to have. Exactly. It's like you see, you know how you go out and you see kids and you say, "Why that kid acting so crazy?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, parents let them. Plain and simple. When you see the enthusiasm of the game, when the team scores, they're gonna throw the toilet paper out so you hold the game up.
Exactly.
Don't give them a tech. Now, well, it's just toilet paper. Fans are observers of the game.
That's
They're
right.
not participants in any way, form, or fashion. I played and coached in hostile environments.
Mm-hmm.
I've coached and played in environments that will put most of these to shame. Now, one place that Reggie would probably be at least a little familiar with is Brayboy Gym in Charlotte, Johnson C. Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Now, personally, I think Cameron Indoor Stadium, because it's so orchestrated, is a punk compared to Brayboy.
Right.
Brayboy has a coach, and a few years ago he had a president and a coach and AD that both went to Johnson C. Smith.
Mm-hmm.
They knew how to work all this stuff. You know, Dr. Yancey would be all up on the table, the works. He sat with the fans. Okay. Even there, now they would talk about your parents. They would talk about relatives in such a way to make you hate them. But at the same time, though, they don't touch you.
Right.
And see all this stuff about fans. In the ACC, they talk about the fans this, the fans that.
Right.
So, personally, screw the fans.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to be there for the game to happen. And it's unfortunate that you have to get to that point simply because when you look at it, economically you need them there.
Exactly.
To a point. But beyond that point, you don't need them. They're a waste.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the way. They think far more of themselves than they really should. And at any point, because I remember at one year, was at Fayetteville State some years ago, the former chancellor, there was this young man who was always, he would get all up in the referee's face and all this kind of stuff. So it reached a point where first move of the officials, throw him out.
Mm-hmm.
And the chancellor got upset, and he didn't understand that once the game starts, he ain't chancellor, they are.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Reggie probably remember this when Dr. The president of Hampton went down on the field after an official because of a call. And yes, it was a bad call, but he forgot that the officials were in charge of the game, not him.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, he had to pay a fine and some other stuff that wasn't so nice. But see, people put too much credence into what fans add to a game because when you got a close game and you hear from the stands foul the nigger.
Mm-hmm.
What do? Take a foul, go to free throw line, and you hit the free throws, win the game, and get the heck out of there.
That's right. That's right.
And that's what you do as players. But as far as, and I've seen people throw stuff out on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Those old Coke bottles.
Yep.
They talk about Coke bottle glasses. Them with the pop-off tops.
That's right.
Not this little sticky stuff that you got now.
Mm-hmm.
Hit the floor, and their player slipped in and had to be taken off the floor because he couldn't. Well, he was bleeding profusely to begin with.
Yep.
But it was actually the trainer from our school who helped save his life, really, because that's how bad it was. I mean, it was a really bad. I mean, he slipped on the glass, or slipped on the soda, and the glass, the bottle, when it shattered, this big chunk of glass is sticking out of his leg. So it was, as trainers would do even back then, the trainers got together and took care of it.
Mm-hmm. I always wondered.
And there were some folks back there who didn't want that colored boy putting his hands on him.
Mm-hmm. But I always wondered. I always wondered, Fred, when we were going to see the day, and Reggie, when somebody was going to sue because they got injured on a field of play by a fan. You would think the odds alone are infinitesimal that it has gone on this long and it hasn't happened yet. But we know the time is coming. I mean, what were the odds that Randy Johnson was going to hit a dove with a fastball? And so, I mean, think about it. I mean, it was nothing but feathers. I mean, he fucked that bird up. I mean, the ball's coming 95 miles an hour, so if it hits a baseball player with a batting helmet on, you know what the fuck it did to the dove. But having said that, we've seen incidents. I mean, I remember the game at Giant Stadium when that bad call came and everybody started throwing beer bottles down there. Now, at the time, nobody knew that them beer bottles were plastic, but the point was, you had a bunch of drunk mofos throwing shit on the field. If those had been glass bottles, people would have been killed behind that crap, and no one would have said jack.
But Mike, you remember Ron Shaw? I think the picture for the Giants back in the day, where the guy got him upset. He kicked the catcher and went out there to the baseball but with a bat in his hand.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, and I remember when Bob Gibson, they were doing a little All-Star game, and Reggie Jackson ran around the field because he hit the ball with Bob Gibson, and he was scared Bob was going to throw the ball at him. But this was just a friendly game.
Right, but that's mono a mono. I'm talking specifically now about fans or so-called fans.
Right.
You know, there has to be a license where this shit needs to be ratcheted the fuck down because they done gone too far here. To see that, I mean, I got to wonder what our friends must have thought of her the next day when that picture was blasted all over the Miami Herald or whatever paper it is down there. And you got her giving Yannick Noah the finger, you know, and if Yana had a pimp moment and bitch slapped her ass, you know, we'd be talking about what a thug Yannick was instead of what a boorish bitch this woman was for doing something like that. Or if he had spit in her face or had done something where she would have had to back the fuck up. And let's put it this way. If he had put a hand on her, do you truly think her boyfriend or whoever that was with her was going to fight this 6'10" brother? Come on.
But Mike, how many times do we hear Charles Barkley still getting dogged out by spitting on the girl in Philadelphia? That still comes up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But the bottom line was he should have had better sense not to mess with Charles in the first damn place. You know, you don't just jump on somebody because they're a celebrity. But by the same token, again, when it comes to fans, this has been brewing for a long time. And we hear sports radio. It doesn't matter whether it's down where Fred is in North Kakalaki or where you are in D.C. area or up here where I am.
Lord help
these guys have had this putrid formula in place for a long time. You know, hype this, hype that. You know, come in with some people who think they know the game, some people who actually might know some about the game, but it doesn't matter. As long as you have a loud voice and a clear signal, you can get away with just about any fucking thing. Because if you get busted, you can say, well, I'm not a journalist, I'm an entertainer. And
that's a lie.
Which would be entertaining as an ass whipping on my part, but I digress. The point is, they've got fans thinking this way now. So the fans come in there, they call in, they thinking that, well, I'm empowered to say, oh yeah, no, just for an example, here in this neck of the woods, Donovan McNabb is going to retire as an Eagle. And now the question is, should Donovan's number be retired forever by the Eagles? Nobody's ever going to wear number 5 again. And they're taking random samples of fans, and while they're doing this, no, here's the tip. No matter how supportive fans seem to be about McNabb, the bullshit coming out of the station is, well, you know, he was okay, but, you know, and then it comes all these other things that imply that, well, no, you know, anything that McNabb did on the field is secondary to what we say he did on the field. And that's the formula that's developing, that's sweeping the country, where real sports journalism is taking a back seat to this kind of drivel that's all about, you know, me, look at me, who gives a shit about what the Phillies say? Let me tell you what I'm going to say about the Phillies. That's the kind of crap we're talking about that spreads to each metro area, and regardless of what sport it is, we got these knuckleheads doing this, and it's permeated down to the college and even the high school levels. You know, it's all about them because they're trying to get their voices loud enough so that somebody will notice them and take them along to the next level.
Yep, that's it. That's how they do it. But real quick, Mike, this is my thing. You have these bookworms out here, no offense, Doc, but they sit up here and they want to memorize everything about a player. Say, well, you know, so-and-so back in the Mendoza line, They ain't never lift up a jockstrap, let alone play the game. But yeah, they're gonna sit up here and criticize how a person who has done blood, sweat, and tears made to the professional level, and then they want to tear them down. And again, I gotta blame talk radio for that. I mean, every time you look around, they look like they want to get their nuts off by sitting there saying about what a person isn't doing. But yet when the positive things come out, like a Terrell Owens who maybe adopt 81 people when he's in Buffalo, you know, or the different things that even Ronald Test does up in New York when he goes back to New York, his hometown, St. John's, and he helps people with mentally ill problems. You won't hear about that, but you hear the negativity.
Fred, as I get you to throw something in the pot before we change course on this discourse here, you know, what's the thing that bothers you most in the midst of all of this? The fact that, you know, Noah, as the opponent, you know, had to get the hell out of there and just walk off as quickly as he could, thinking, I'm at the professional level now. These fans are acting like they're supposed to have some sense. Or the fact that this woman felt entitled to come all the way across wherever the fuck she was, to lean over the railing and get in his face and give him the finger.
Well, the first thing to remember in all this is that the term fan means fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
There are about 4 or 5 expletives that I have promised not to use anymore that would come to mind immediately. Because these people are out of control.
That's
the
right.
ones who got the worst control issues in the world. It's very rare you see one who looks like us running out on the field. I don't ever remember seeing one of us out on the field. I don't remember one of us streaking for the older among us. I don't remember, you know, we always had, there was certain range for us that we wouldn't go beyond when it came to being stupid. So because of that, we tend not to get caught up in that, although it is changing. Because now, you know, I see this little black kid on the skateboard doing stuff that I had only seen white kids do. He fell and busted his ass in front of the library one day. It was, I mean, you know, it was one of those, as old folks say, I felt it myself. That's how hard he hit. He gets up, sort of shakes it off and laughs and gone about his business. I hope and pray he was not hurt, for real.
No joke.
But, you know, when it comes to fans, we have, for one thing, you would think somebody who can afford some of the prices that are paid for these seats. Now, granted, you know, baseball is pretty cheap because there's so many games.
Right.
But still, we're still talking about decent money when you really get down to it. I listen to the Braves, and I think their cheapest package is $100+ for 5 games. So we're talking about $20 plus. And we haven't even gotten into if you smell popcorn or anything else that you're going to do for 3 hours. And, you know, we have given them a license to do some things that ain't got nothing to do with the game. I hate that the Artestas of the world or the Barkers of the world get put in those positions, and I hate the way they react. And, you know, even though I wouldn't be that far behind them, because, like I said, I still have a few anger management issues when it comes to stuff, especially stuff like that. I mean, I've been to I've seen the gyms with the signs, niggas ain't welcome here and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
I gotta say, fellas, we're gonna press from the time we walk on the court to the time we leave. We ain't changing here. We're gonna get our stuff. We're gonna get the hell out of here as soon as this is over. And when we leave, we won't have the crowd already gone. How do you do that? Double the score on them. And that's pretty much what we did.
There you go.
Beat them so bad they didn't want to come play us on our gym. And see, in listening to the you know, and just so you understand, there's nothing personal against Madden. There's nothing personal against that other buffoon.
Right.
Because they're just the two names that kind of come to mind. I don't generally like to say Dick Vitale. Mm-hmm. The reason is he wrote 3 books. He doesn't mention McClendon other than passing. Mm-hmm. He doesn't. The only thing he said about Big House Steve is he has a grandson that does an excellent impression of me. Now we're talking about, if nothing else, you're talking about one, the man who taught America and most of the world how to play the game.
Exactly.
I was talking to someone who was at Coach McClendon's funeral along with me. We were talking about the cards that came with Coach McClendon's flower from the Russian people, Russian sports agency hierarchy. You know, we're not talking about little bitty people. We're talking about this was before the whole Russian regime fell totally apart. Their sports stuff was still together. Exactly. And they sent this flower, and part of what was with this flower was part of the wording had to do with how grateful they were for how he taught them how to play basketball. Mm-hmm. And see, when you see this book I'm working on now, the McClendon system worked so well that one of the teams that ran it right there, the Hillside is right down the hill from North Carolina College, and although Coach Easterling played, coached against teams with Coach Mack, he knew the system very well because they talked.
Right.
And Coach Mack, this team was averaging 100-plus points, 104 points a game in 32 games. And so how do they do that? They always say that black folks didn't play defense, but it was full court pressure.
Exactly.
If fans don't understand that, all they understand, well, our team, we were in our colors, like, you know, and they're such gangsters, you know. There's a short line between what you see with fans throwing toilet paper on the court because your team score. One school that's here in town, who bears the towns, their fans stand up until their team score the first points. Mm-hmm. And one night they stood up for 6.5 minutes until they scored their first points because the other team was pressing.
Right.
But see, fans don't understand this side of they don't understand the game to begin with. They just know what they think. Mm-hmm. And you know how it is when they're mad at the referee for calling a foul, even though they're intentionally fouling. So that shows you how smart fans are. And when you look at the big picture, it's a short line between those fans that are doing what they're doing and those 3 or 4 little idiots down in New Orleans last weekend.
Yep.
Who saw somebody, thought they saw somebody who looked like somebody and shoot 19 people, actually 20 now, I think they say.
Yeah.
And don't think, and the police don't think they hit the person they were shooting at.
Exactly.
So how long is it before something that stupid? Because, you know, I remember reading about one of the schools, so a couple of schools in North Carolina, they got put on suspension because they didn't provide sufficient police protection. And so buses got rocked, buses got stuff thrown at them, bus got shot at. And the funny, well, it's really not that funny. It was only funny because nobody got hurt.
Exactly.
But one of the buses that was getting rocked at one of the schools from Charlotte was from one of the schools in Charlotte, and somebody inside the bus shot, got up several rounds.
Jesus.
And see, I know of several coaches who back in the day carried one coach over in Kinston, coach in Kinston and New Bern. He traveled with the 45.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking, matter of fact, you would know one of his players, Walt Bellamy.
Okay, Bells, yeah.
Bell's high school football and basketball coach traveled with a gun. And so how long is it before a fan do something that causes a player or players to react negatively like that, and then there's no real stopping them? I mean, one thing
Fred, now that you went there, I just realized, as we're talking about this has already happened. It just hasn't happened here. It's happened abroad. Soccer pitches all over Europe, we've seen this happen. And we've seen it happen more and more to African and African-American players because the fans lose their damn mind, and they have literally, some have even gone on and challenged players. And in many of the cases, it's the partisan fans or nut jobs for that other team who want to try to take out the most skilled or whoever's closest and whatnot, and we see on-field violence. I mean, crazy shit. And we know, just like you said, in an opposing situation, you want to get that other team out of there as quickly as possible.
But see, even rushing the floor after the game, fans have no business on the court. Again, it's only going to take that one idiot.
I agree.
Who always shows up.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who's described. Oh, he just had a couple of beers. He shouldn't smell beer. Rather than smelling like it, so he goes out and he does something stupid. I.e., he jumps in a player's face who just lost the game.
Yep.
You don't want to get in his face. Trust me. And how long is it before? In all this quote, what's the stupid word they use? Enthusiasm.
Yeah. Passion.
Passion for the game.
Mm-hmm.
All that other nonsense. Okay, where's all this self-control that you're supposed to have? Because, again, if you notice, most of the people don't look like us.
That's right.
Most of the time, we either can't afford or are not willing to get paid much for a ticket. We don't have that at the CIAA.
There you go. Excellent point. You ain't going to see somebody coming out on the floor. But as long as they've got this paradigm set up the way they do, a tragedy that you spoke of is already going to offend. Like I said, after that umpire was attacked at that baseball field, you would have thought that the commissioner would have come down hard and immediately imposed something that would have banned, that kind of activity at every stadium. Now, I've seen people thrown out because, like say, if a foul ball goes on the third baseline and they reach for it and they happen to tip over and whatnot, now they're not involved in the play because the ball's foul. And if they're trying to get to the dumb ball and the ball boy or ball girl can't reach it, I wouldn't get all bent up and out of shape and say throw them out. When they're doing something overt like running on the fucking field, no, you got to go. Get the fuck out. And by the way, it's, $10,000 fine and your ass is in jail till your parents come down to see you. And if they don't have the money, you're going to stay there. So we don't see any enforcement of that after that. So everybody got the impression that it was okay. And if you're going to give fans this kind of license, then you only are delaying the inevitable, and you are going to see a tragedy happen where somebody, God forbid, is going to get really hurt behind some crazy-ass bullshit, and it's going to go past somebody excusing themselves saying, oh, I just had one too many beers, because it's going to be involved in somebody's life, and beers ain't got nothing to do with it.
Well, Mike, you got one of the things to consider in all this is that when you look at the whole sports world,
mm-hmm.
and you talk about stuff that goes on overseas, because I've read and seen some of these stories about, we know what nutcases most Europeans are when it comes to soccer.
Sure.
There are places who don't want World Cup because, they're as quiet as it's kept right now. They're hoping the Germans don't make it, which they're probably going to,
mm-hmm.
Because they show up and they come and they let you know we're coming to, not just coming to the game, we're coming to wreck your city.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why are we building this infrastructure for these idiots to show up and tear it up?
Yeah.
And is the amount of money it's going to take to clean up after them really worth what they're going to spend? Probably not.
That's the thing that bugs me. Fred, now that you said that, it's like, where is the sensibility and cost effectiveness here? If two fans get arrested or two nuts get arrested for attacking an umpire, and the commissioner says, we're not tolerating that crap, we're setting ironclad restrictions on coming onto the field, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, do you really think baseball fans will, if I can't go on the field, I'm not going to go to the baseball game ever again? Of course not. So you would think this would be welcome. And anybody who goes to the game knows, all right, if you're out there and your ass gets caught on the field, cover them tour on the way to jail. So why hasn't that been implied, and why hasn't that been enforced?
Because you got the first fiasco is the person who's in the commissioner's seat. They're so afraid of, quote, upsetting the fans. And the reality, from where I sit, the reality is and should be, what about those people who come just to enjoy the game?
Exactly.
They're you know, because see, I never forget, my daughter was very young when Dwight Gooden was in Lynchburg.
Mm-hmm.
His visit there. But, you know, it was always this pride thing. You know, granted, she did not know who the heck he was any more than I did at the time, per se. But, you know, she would watch him because she knew him.
Exactly.
Until he got caught with drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly but surely, I don't think she would watch a baseball game now to save her neck.
Mm-hmm.
But that was how disappointed she was in him. And she, you know, it was like, this is the guy who keeps our school, et cetera, et cetera. And you know what that's like with a kid.
Yeah.
So take that and just overlay it with, you go into the ball game, and you remember, when things start flying at a ball game, and you know this, and you know this from the press box, that you know you see everything. But when things start flying at a ball game, things start flying. And there's no control whatsoever. And you got, if nothing else, remember, was it Spain somewhere just a couple of years ago? 30-some fans got trampled.
That's right.
Several got killed.
Yep.
Behind all this other nonsense. Total nonsense.
Yeah, Cowboy, as you just bopped back in, as we've been kicking this whole issue of where the line is drawn and the likelihood that a tragedy is going to happen on an American sports field, not because an athlete was killed during the field of play, but because some fan went on and did something stupid. I mean, now that the more I'm thinking about this, remember, this, and most of this, as Fred said earlier, you can go to the CIAA tournament. Shit like that's not going to happen. You know.
No.
You know, the folks is going to behave themselves. They're going to party and all that, but they're going to behave themselves. But you go to a tennis match in Europe, you would think the most genteel settings, quiet please, and some crazy motherfucker comes out the stands and almost kills Monica Seles because at the time she's playing so well that she might pass his countrywoman, Steffi Graf, as being the best in the world. Can you imagine what would happen if anybody had ever tried to do that to the Williams sisters or Sloane Stephens now, who's starting to become a rising star? You know, if somebody had done that to one of those sisters, frankly, I think they'd whip their ass first. I'm talking about the sisters would. But the specter of somebody getting killed, if that blade had gone in another direction, Monica Seles would be lying there dead. And somebody would say, well, you know, he wasn't in his right mind. Monica Seles was never right after that stabbing. Even though she got to play again, can you imagine what it was like for her to sleep at night, freaking the fuck out, thinking that when she goes back for a backhand or when she's trying to run the court, some nut job's going to run out of nowhere and stab her? You know?
See, Mike, that goes back to what my man went through, Hank Aaron.
Exactly.
I mean, when Hank Aaron was so paranoid that he would put his hand over his cup because he was scared someone was going to poison him. And even when you have soccer matches when bananas are thrown on the field, and we see right now overseas when they have soccer games when fans are getting stampeded and
Monkey
getting killed. It's already happened.
Shit. Oh, yeah.
It's already happened. You know, so, I mean, why do people think it's out the rim? I mean, with this volatile situation right now, and I tell you what, Tiger Woods better watch himself. You know, because golf is a perfect setting. I mean, you're right there with the galleries. They're on top of you. And that's my check. It's no weapons check. I'm not saying it can be flippant. But who's to say some inebriated, you know, person out there, all of a sudden they look at Tiger and they get pissed, and they might take a stick and hit him upside the head or take a pocket knife and cut him. Listen, take a gun.
I'm feeling you, especially now since he seems to be getting some of his mojo back. And whether you want to root for Tiger or root against them,
a white woman.
Exactly. But the point is, there he is again, the arrogant black bastard. He's fucking those white women, and he's winning. Don't think they're not. That's exactly right, because they surely are. And this isn't about him just fucking white women. This is about the fact that he was the number one golfer in the world. There was him, and there was a huge gap between whoever the hell was second at the time. And the only reason they busted him was because he was number one. If Tiger had been one of those cats who was on the tour, who won a tournament every now and then, and, he would always be an also-ran, nobody would have said shit about whatever and how many women he was fucking, and they probably would have been fucking right along with him. I mean, we got to just keep it 100. The bottom line is when he became number one, he didn't understand. Well, he was blind to the fact that they were going to find a way to find his chink in his armor, his kryptonite, if you will, and get in that black ass and make him pay. And that's exactly what they did. They didn't punish him for taking drugs. They didn't punish him for violating any kind of golf rules or golf etiquette or anything. They punished him because he was fucking all these white women. That's what they punished him for. And the fact that his wife beat his ass with a club. But I digress.
I was looking at Saturday Night Skit. He said, "Wow, I didn't know she was this strong." They took it down. They said, "We made it. We lose the money on this. We got to take it down for you too."
But the thing that's not funny is that what you're laying out as a possible scenario is very, very real. It's very real. And the day it happens, Tiger, for all he wants to be as far as this Kaplanation shit, he'll find out that he's black then, because whenever somebody of color is wrongfully done in such a manner, it's referred to as a tragic accident. And the last thing I want to hear is tragic accident being after the name of anybody. But in this world right now, with the climate being what it is, and where economics also comes into play, where more resentment of these athletes and the money they're making is more and more to the front, and the gap is widening because now they see the bigger issue is to try to right the shit to tear him down. I mean, now we see when Tiger was in that last day with Sergio Garcia in that last tournament, the Players' Championship, whatever they call it, with the weird 17th hole, there were guys that waiting to write that copy that Tiger bitched up. Just like there were guys ready to write that copy that Kobe Bryant and everybody else on the Redeem team, they were hoping for that because it would be more bang for their buck in writing the negative shit about what they didn't do than in what they accomplished. And I think we can all agree that that's the biggest flip of the script in this whole sports journalism paradigm that's happened over the last few years. That now the win is not what they really are shooting for. They want not the upset for the sake of David beating Goliath. They want the upset so they can trash these kids, these black athletes, as badly as they possibly can and talk about what mental fortitude they don't have. Well, we're going to talk about what we do have, and that's our last licks here as we come to another show. Just getting some late information in as we speak. Bobbi is checking in, letting us know that she will be available next week to provide her info on the Move celebration, as well as Sonic, Sherial, and Celestial. As we get to this, we'll get to our last licks, and Cowboy, lead it off, throw something in the pot, and don't forget your shameless plug.
Well, thank you again, Mike, for persevering, my friend. I know it's been a rough week for you, and to have your daughter on, that's just icing the cake. I'm like Mr. Peabody and Sherman, take it back in the weighing machine. People might not remember this, but it was the Boston Celtics game. I never forgot that a referee was walking away, and some drunken fan had a liquor bottle and hit him upside the head. I want to say this was back, it might have been JoJo White, Sam Jones, I'm not sure, but it happened. I saw it on TV on ABC. I'll never forget it. and the poor referee, they switched to him some minutes later, and he had his head bandaged up. So the fans coming on attacking is nothing new. But I say that, as you and I talked about earlier, Mike, that when I look at the climate of what's going on today in the politics, it was a situation at ODU where the athletic director was on a local sports show down in Williamsburg, and he made the comment that Jeff Jones' contract had not been finalized yet, but the Virginia pilot takes upon itself to go and file a Freedom of Information Act to find out how much the coach was getting paid. Now, the sad thing about it was the contract has not been signed yet. So a little bit of information has just dribbled out. And we're talking about ODU, we're not talking about UVA. Now, the sad thing apart again is that they have a relationship with this paper, the Virginia Pilot, and they felt that since they were the Virginia Pilot and they had friends out there, that they were going to file a Freedom of Information Act to find out how much was being paid. Now, say this was, maybe the Richmond Voice or maybe the Free Press, a black newspaper that did that. They would have been shunned. They would have been barred. They would never even got to look at the campus, let alone try to cover it. So, again, we see where, again, money, power, influence plays a part. Now, if they did it to Jeff Jones, can you imagine that had been somebody else out there at a lower college and what they would have done to them? So I'm just saying again, ladies and gentlemen, we better look at this with the third eye when it comes to what's happening in the White House and what's happening on the world view. Because I'm telling you that the situation right now, that just like the eyes of Martin and Judas, President Obama, you got a lot of Jews in your administration, and they're doing what they can to go after you, to bring you down. And people might not believe me, but all I'm saying now is this is just the first shoe to drop of many more scandals that, should we say, have been brought in within, the enemy within, just like when the invaders did that to Dr. King. Sports Talk every Saturday from 12 to 1 with Professor Tony Cobb, the Cypher Glenn Brown, and the Hall of Fame Coach Lou Anderson, and myself, Cowboy Reggie, at www.wcamradioonline.com. Again, that's www.wcamradioonline.com. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, well said, Cowboy. Professor, throw something in the pot and your shameless plug, please.
Mike, on Saturday we brought this up in about the list of that the black schools were on.
Yes.
And this was one of the great tragedies, and it falls right in line with our discussion about other issues tonight, about how these hatchet jobs are being done by these, quote, studies, scientific studies, academic studies, which are neither scientific nor academic in true nature. We have to do a better job of telling our own stories, first of all. That's old news for me. You've heard it.
No doubt.
Everybody else have heard that before. But the kind of thing that I'm looking at here is, right now, Shaw is one of those schools who cannot afford that, nor the PR costs to fight it.
Right.
So what I have decided to do is really to go public with how this works anyway, and that is the book that I've actually done on Shaw University, which reflects their sports prowess over the last 13 years specifically, but actually going all the way back to how they helped form the CIAA 100 years ago. And what we're going to do with that is the book costs $30. They will get $10 off the top to begin with for any orders that we have for the book. And if enough come in early enough, we'll split the savings with them as far as printing costs. Because I'm sick and tired of these people putting our schools down and then want to come back and say, well, oops, well, maybe we were wrong. No. We have the opportunity to find out all about Shaw's athletics as well as a good part of the rest of their campus. And I'll just throw this one thing out. What other school do you know has a Toastmasters program for their women's basketball team? There's not one in the country.
Wow.
But Shaw has this. And so you got to look at Shaw from the perspective of who they produced. And they produced a lot of great people. One that will come to mind to us of our age group was Dr. Benjamin Quarles, who told us about, the dog test and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
You can find out about that in the Shaw Bears Decade of, let me get it right, Shaw Bears Decade of Champions and Beyond. That's by myself, and you can get copies of the book along with the sports encyclopedia, the regular sports encyclopedia, at www.blackheritagereview.com. That's www.blackheritagereview.com. Each of those books are available now, and the sports encyclopedia is available, and the special edition on Shaw University will be available next month. Thank you.
All right, BlackHeritageReview.com. The professor doing his thing, and the evening's buffet has been closed as far as serving. We want to thank our resident staff of chefs and my little sous chef there in British Columbia, Leah Michelle, for throwing something in the pot, giving everybody some insight on how this 1% is infecting the entire world, and that everybody's standard of living, whether it be American, Canadian, British, whatever, will be affected if people don't collectively speak the fuck up and say, you can't get away with that. Because as we all know, folks only go as far as you let them. And sometimes we let shit carry on too far where we don't come to a point and say, all right, enough. Because that enough wasn't established in the first place. The banking scandal is a clear case of that, because we saw here nothing was done. The gangsters, the banksters, if you will, were rewarded. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, like Iceland, everybody who was involved in their banking scandal is now behind the fuck bars. They're all arrested. Instead of those people whose homes were in question losing them, they got their homes back. And the debt was essentially written off because those officials in Iceland understood the big picture. Now, isn't it interesting that for years, and we know how long it's been since the so-called bank settlement, that you didn't hear anything on our mainstream media talk about what happened in Iceland. Now, supposedly this is a world fishbowl, so if something happens in Iceland, that ain't that big a deal. We could hear about that with the speed of a click of a mouse, correct? But you didn't hear about it here, and the mainstream media didn't talk about it here. And the only reason I'm bringing this up, because it is in sync with what we've talked about all night long, and it's the fact that you're having folks who are taking advantage of a situation, and they're doing so because they were given license to do so. Until somebody smacked their hand or put handcuffs on them, they felt that they could do whatever the hell they want and get away with it. I'm mindful of I'm not one to know scripture by chapter and verse and all that stuff, but I do remember the old adage about give a man a fish and he'll eat. Teach a man to fish and he'll feed his family forever, or something to that effect. Well, this whole atmosphere of banksterism has really come down to this. Give a man a gun and he can rob a bank. But give a man a bank and he can rob the world. And that's what these banksters are doing, and never let it be not known that the impact of what they're doing financially weighs on everybody on this side of the globe, on the other side of the globe, as this chasm between have and have not is widening. Things will get worse before they get better if people do not speak up. We will be back Saturday with our normal run. Thank you for indulging us this Thursday night for our Over the Hump special. For Cowboy Reggie, for my daughter Leah Michelle, for the professor, for Bobby Booker, Sherial, Celestial, Patrick, and everybody else on staff. Do what y'all need to do, because right now the kitchen's closed. We out.
BlackAthlete.com